Students take actions like this when systems of power and decision-making are inaccessible to them. They do it out of need, out of pain, and out of anger. And sometimes in their anger, they say and do things we wish they had said or done differently. I hope we will focus on the message rather than on the way it was delivered.
What are you supposed to do with all the anger that you feel when you're young? And not that when you were young, or if you were young, you feel full of anger, but some of us feel full of anger. We feel it in our teeth. It's like biting down on tinfoil. And it's electric and yet inherently unsatisfying. What are you supposed to do with all that? I mean, you can invert that and it becomes some sort of like depression, it becomes some form of eating one's own self. And gnawing down where you come from, gnawing down your parents, gnawing down everything that you inherited, tearing that all apart. But at the end, at the root, what are you supposed to do with all of that anger? And the simplistic answer is that you're supposed to like turn that into something productive, right? You're supposed to take all that energy, that rabid amount of force, and invest it into something that will yield a certain result. That is the answer. Both cliched and true. That is the answer. Both cliched and true. And yet, that does not solve the excess. The excess of discontent and looking at that which is in the world, looking at that which is, and seeing a profound lack of that which is yet. A profound difference between what you feel that you were promised and what you know that you were given. That anger. You know, we can sink it into physical activities, right? You can go and you can play sports. You can go and you can exercise. You can go and you can make love to people. Some of those people will like that. Some of these people will not. You can do that. You can concentrate all of that anger because it presumably derives from some sort of physiological, origin. You can expend that anger into a physiological, activity and a physiological result, whether desired or totally undesired. But what are you supposed to do with all that anger? How do you take the raw and refine it? And yet, in that refinement, is there not somehow a diminishment of that rawness, a diminishment of that immediacy and that urgency in the process of refinement? And there is, but there isn't. Some of us have been created to be frayed circuits. And as a frayed circuit, you are producing a certain amount of spark. And that spark, when brought up against a certain material, might just spark an inflagration. Now, when we look at what is happening at colleges, there are two things that are happening at colleges. There is the young people acting in a certain way, and young people will always act in this way. They will always act in the way. The thing that I'm trying to critique is these mature people who are fomenting this way of acting, this very momentary, very rageful way of acting. And what results from that? Well, at Evergreen, we see that there was a backlash, right? I have tons and tons of professors at Evergreen saying, the alt-right backlash.
And then, as the alt-right backlash hit us, I wondered if we'd have graduation at all.
We should all be aware of how higher education, liberal arts higher education in particular, is being targeted by the far right nationally, and how inevitably Evergreen would be set in the sights of movements like that.
Well, no. It was just everybody backlashed against this. There's going to be an equal and opposite result from certain sorts of behavior. And to run and to hide from that, it shows a profound lack of maturity. It shows a profound surplus of foolishness, a profound deficit of wisdom. And yet looking at these people, like these teachers, these professors, and like knowing them and being around them, like, yeah, they're well-meaning, they're good people and stuff like that. And they're a little dreamy, a little nostalgic for some great revolution that never came. Not knowing that the revolution has come and will come again. It's constantly revolving. Everything is constantly revolving. But there's these young people who are full of anger. And if that anger is not managed correctly, it will turn either inward or outward. And it will produce something that is unproductive. It will produce the exact opposite of a product. Depression is focused inward, and you're going to be lost if you're going inward. At least anger is focused outward. But you're going to be lost if you can't channel that energy into something that is either running through a prefigured circuit or can bend material that's already there into a better circuit. So many of us wanted to be geniuses. And some of us were. And so many of us wanted to be recognized. And some of us were. And some of us were recognized as being genius. But most of us weren't. Most of us aren't. But that fire, that genie, that gen, that spirit of flame, if we can foster that in young people, if we can foster that which is already inherent in our youth towards some sort of goal that isn't just dismantling what is insufficient about what is, but is directed toward a building of a higher, finer, greater structure, then I think what we are doing is actually beneficial for our society. Insofar as we are justifying how people acted because of what they said had all this truth, and you get down into what they said and you find that actually, well, that wasn't justifiable either.
Students take actions like this when systems of power and decision-making are inaccessible to them. They do it out of need, out of pain, and out of anger. And sometimes in their anger, they say and do things we wish they had said or done differently. I hope we will focus on the message rather than on the way it was delivered.
We find it so difficult to admit that we're wrong, especially after we've spent so many years training ourselves to be right in a certain specific way, and to see our righteousness and our rightness abused unknowingly by those who we have taught it to. It must be terrible. It must be terribly deflating. And so I understand why certain professors run and hide and put their head in the sand, because what is the result of all that effort and all that care that you poured into this creature, into this system, into this belief? If it results only in 1, gross negligence, 2, indefensible behavior, 3, a backlash that has to be defined as only coming from those who you've always loathed, there is a gateway. There's a gateway in the sky, beyond the lightning and beyond the thunder. There is a gateway into that which is higher, finer, more refined, more beneficial for more and more people. But that is not in the anger itself. The anger is a propulsionary element that might launch us through that gateway. But as with rocket science, you need a whole lot of understanding of parabolas and kind of a bunch of luck, and understanding how weather operates, and understanding humidity, understanding all these tertiary and secondary effects in order to get your arrow to hit the mark, to get your rocket to boost just the right way through that window in the sky so that it can circle around to provide something that hovers over us and looks down on us and provides us a bunch of information in order for us to direct our lives more betterly through the world. Anger isn't something to be feared and isn't something to be exactly admonished in and of itself. It's something to be managed. And that is a moral imperative for us.